ورقة جلدي ودقة عزمي، يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتكريتي، حبني الابتداء كرمك وسالف برك بي، يا إلهي وسيدي وربي تراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انتوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولهج به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاصيا لربوبيتك، هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيع من ربيته، أو تبعد من أدنيته، أو تشرد من آويته، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعت الأوطان تعبدك الطائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة. ما هكذا ظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم. يا ربي وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكروه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته، فكيف احتمال البلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض. يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين. يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولم منها زجو، وأبكي ليليم العذاب وشدته، أم لطول البلاء ومدته، فلئن سيرتني في العقوبات مع أعدائك، وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك، وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، فهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ورب صبرت على عذابك، فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على حر نارك، فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك، أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجاء عفوك، فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأزجن إليك بين أهلها زجيج الآملين، ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولو نادينك إن كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين. أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته، وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يزج إليك زجيجا مؤملا لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك ورأفتك ورحمتك، أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يعمل فضلك ورحمتك، أم كيف يهرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه، أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه، أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه، أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا ربه، أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عده منها فتتركه فيها. هيهات ما ذلك الظن بكل المعروف من فضلك، ولا مشبه لما عاملت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقتو لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك، وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك، لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مقرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأنت جل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته وأخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيد أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جوارحي وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك وأخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأن توفر حظ من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رفقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بزري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وعظم صفاتك
اشک غم حسین کا ٹوٹا نہ سلسلہ اشک غم حسین کا ٹوٹا نہ سلسلہ رومال فاطمہ میں ہمیشہ نمی رہی رومال فاطمہ میں ہمیشہ نمی رہی ذکر غم حسین سے محفل سجی رہی ہو گیا چراغ مگر روشنی رہی ذکر غم حسین سے
اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد
فدا اس پہ سلامی ہے جس کا نام حسین فدا اس پہ سلامی ہے جس کا نام حسین میرا محی میرا آقا میرا امام حسین فدا اس پہ صبا کو بھیج کے روزے پہ کر رہا ہوں دعا کرے قبول الہی میرا سلام کرے قبول الہی میرا سلام حسین فدا اس پہ جو کربلا پر ہوا تھا ان کا عروج، تو پھر کے دیکھتے تھے خبر کا مقام حسین، فدا اس پہ سنا نہائے کسی سنگ دل نے لاکھ کہا، رسول کا ہوں نواسا ہے میرا رسول کا ہوں نواسا ہے میرا نام حسین، فدا ہوں اس پہ نہ پوچھو وقت وہ کیسا تھا جب مدینے سے چلے ہر ایک کا لیتے ہوئے سلام، چلے ہر ایک کا لیتے ہوئے سلام حسین، فدا اس پہ پناہ لیتے تھے دشمن اجل کے دامن میں، جو وار کرتے تھے لے کر علی کا نام، جو وار کرتے تھے لے کر علی کا نام حسین، فدا اس پہ سلامی ہے جس کا نام حسین، میرا محی میرا آقا میرا امام حسین، فدا اس پہ
صلی محمد۔
سفر کوفہ کے مرض سے چند بند ہے، فاتحہ۔
صلی
جب لوٹ کے کربلا سے اسیر ستم چلے، جب لوٹ کے کربلا سے اسیر ستم چلے، سجاد سر برہنا بدر دو علم چلے، روتے سروں کو پیٹتے پابند غم چلے، زینب نے لاش شہ سے کہا بھائی ہم چلے، مرنے سے آپ کے میں ایزا اٹھاتی ہوں، دربار میں یزید کے سر ننگے جاتی ہوں، دربار میں یزید کے سر ننگے جاتی ہوں، ہائے ہائے میرے مسافر کرب و بلا حسین، ہائے ہائے میرے غریب میرے محل خواہ حسین، ہائے ہائے تجھے نہ پانی کا خطرہ ملا حسین، ہائے ہائے تمام تن تیرا ٹکڑے ہوا حسین، ہائے ہائے تمام تن تیرا ٹکڑے ہوا حسین، گلے پہ خنجر بے داد چل گیا، ہائے ہائے تڑپ تڑپ کے تیرا دم نکل گیا، ہائے ہائے تڑپ تڑپ کے تیرا دم نکل گیا، لینے نواری کی بزا تجھے ملی، اے کربلا خدا کی امانت
تجھے ملی،
اے خاک میری ماں کی ریاضت
تجھے ملی،
لے آئے زمین شام امامت
تجھے ملی،
دامن تیرا بھرا میری کہتی اجڑ
گئی،
سرحد میں تیرے بھائی سے زینب
بچھڑ گئی،
سرحد میں تیرے بھائی سے زینب
بچھڑ گئی،
یہ کہہ کہ سر کو پیٹ کے روئی وہ دل
گئی،
آ کر نجف سے حال میرا دیکھو یا
علی،
گردن رسن میں آپ کے
بیٹی کے ہے مدی،
کہتی یہ ماریا سے وہ باچش میں تر
چلی،
ہائے ہائے میں کربلا معلیٰ میں لوٹ
گئی،
پردیس میں آ کے برادر سے چھوڑ
گئی،
پردیس میں آ کے برادر سے چھوڑ گئی یا لطف زندگی کا جو نقشہ بگڑ گیا کیوں کر نہ تڑپوا بڑا پیچ پڑ
گیا،
اس قافلے کا قافلہ والا بچھڑ گیا ہائے ہائے ہمارا کیسا بھرا گھر اجڑ
گیا،
ہائے ہائے ہمارا کیسا بھرا گھر
اجڑ گیا،
پردیسیوں نے چھونی جنگل میں چھائی ہے بھائی نے میرے نئی بستی بسائی ہے بھائی نے میرے ایک نئی بستی بسائی ہے مہمان بولا کہ ہم سے دغا کی
لائی انہوں نے،
کیا کیا نہ ہم پہ جورو جفا کی
لائی انہوں نے،
کچھ بھی ذرا نہ شرم و حیا کی
لائی انہوں نے،
گردن خفا سے شہ کی جدا کی
لائی انہوں نے،
خیمہ جلا کے اہل ستم شاد ہو
گئے،
ہم کربلا میں آ کے برباد ہو
گئے،
ہم کربلا میں آ کے برباد
ہو گئے،
بھائی پہ میرے سامنے نیزے چلا
کیے،
وہ تبر بدن پہ برابر
لگا کیے،
شبیر شکر شکر ہی منہ سے کہا
کیے،
تیرا نشر سینے سے بے سر جدا
کیے،
روتی رہی میں وہ سر شبیر لے بھائی کی میرے خون بھری تصویر لے
گیا،
بھائی کی میرے خون بھری تصویر لے
گیا،
فریاد ہم غریبوں کی سنتا نہیں کوئی سے کہوں جو ہم پہ مصیبت گزر گئی چادر بھی منہ چھپانے کو سر پر نہیں سر کھول شہر شام میں آئی میں دل جلی سر کھول شہر شام میں آئی مجلس جلی ہمیں دکھا کے سر شہر لاتے ہیں اب سامنے شفیع کے مجھے لے کے جاتے ہیں اب سامنے شفیع کے مجھے لے کے جاتے ہیں اب سامنے شفیع کے مجھے لے کے جاتے ہیں جب لوٹ کے کربلا سے
Mu'minat, this new series of majalis observing the Assyria Ahl Haram and the Ahl Haram being paraded through the streets of Kufa and Sham, inshallah will continue tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. All these 4 majalis, including this evening's, will be recited by Maulana Bilal Rizvi Sahab of Dallas, Texas, and we are honored to have him. He needs no introduction. He's been here before, and addressed the audience here in Astaana-e-Zehra. Recognizing our hosts for this evening, the families of Ahmad Ali, along with Ghazanfar Hussain and Taqi Ali. Thankful for their generosity. May Allah shower His blessings upon these families in this life and the life hereafter. Your hosts for tomorrow's Majlis are the families of Arif Kazmi along with Asghar Kazmi. So please join us tomorrow, inshallah. We'll begin the Majlis with the recitation of Salatul Maghribain by Jama'at. Maulana Sahib, inshallah, will lead the Salatul Maghribain 8 o'clock in the evening. Tomorrow being Jummah, inshallah, we'll have Salatul Jummah starting at 1 p.m. Please join us for that. Again, that is also led by Maulana Bilal Rizvi Sahab. And now I request Maulana Bilal Rizvi Sahab to address the gathering this evening. Par Muhammad Wali Muhammad Bawad Nare Salawat. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على إمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية
والصولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والعبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذبية والحجج الردبية والجود الثقبية والنقابة النقبية والحيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجا وساهل مخرجا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وجعلنا منهم أئمة يهدون بأمرنا لما صبروا وكانوا بآياتنا يوقنون. For the love of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the love of Astaana-e-Zehra, a second salawat ala Muhammad. For the hastening of the reappearance of the master of our time, a louder salawat ala Muhammad. The martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein in Karbala was an event which sent shockwaves throughout the Muslim Ummah, and an event whose impact can be felt until this day. You see, if you reflect on the nature of this world, the nature of this world is such a nature that within 50 years, 100 years, an event is forgotten. If I ask you that what is the name of your great-grandparents, those great-grandparents who are like your parents in your relation, many of you don't know their name. And if you know their name, you don't know the details of their lives. Because that's what the nature of this world is. But when it comes to the dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the event of Karbala, it remains in front of you despite all of the obstacles. In that time period, wealth was in the hands of the Umayyads. Political influence was in the hands of Banu Umayyah. Influence was within the hands of Banu Umayyah. But what wasn't within the hands of Banu Umayyah was the irada and the will of Allah. You see, even if the world comes against the will of God, the will of Allah, it prevails. Allah says in Surah Al-Imran, verse 54 of chapter 3, وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. That they plan and Allah plans, Allah is the best of planners. You see, Pharaoh heard that from Banu Israel there would be a male child who would be the destruction of Pharaoh. So Pharaoh made his own plan. And his plan was to kill each of the male children of Banu Israel. But Allah said, "O Pharaoh, I will create such a plan that Musa, which will be your destruction, will be brought up in your own house, O Pharaoh." When Banu Umayyah thought their influence could stop the dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada, within those very lands of Banu Umayyah, within the court of Yazid, you find the dhikr of Imam al-Hussein would flourish from there. That Allah shows that reality, that this is the irada of Allah. But at the second level, what we need to know about the irada of Allah is that it manifests itself differently for different individuals. The Quran says, كُلَّ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ, that every day Allah manifests His irada and His will in different ways for different individuals. That Hussein, who was the path to salvation for one group, was also the path to damnation for another group. Because they turned away from the reality of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Now let me give you more of a practical example. When you look at the maqatil, especially even the early maqatil, it mentions the fate of the killers of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Even when you go into Tabari in volume 5, where he speaks about the Maqtal of Imam al-Hussein, there are many examples of those individuals who would loot from the body of Sayyid al-Shuhada what their outcome would be. It's stated, for example, there was one man from the tribe of Banu Aban bin Darin. This individual said to Sayyid al-Shuhada that may you never drink from the Furat. You'll find that Qasim ibn Asbagh bin Nubata, the son of the famous companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says that when I would look at this individual, in his final days, he would drink water, he would stop drinking, we would bring him more water. We would keep repeating this, but this individual, his thirst would not be quenched. Another tradition says that a man from Banu Kinda, he took the cloak and the abba of Sayyid al-Shuhada. After taking the abba of Sayyid al-Shuhada, you find poverty inflicts him for the rest of his life. A tradition Sayyid ibn Tawus records in Al-Luhuf. A man by the name of Jabir ibn Yazid al-Awdi, he takes the amama and the turban of Imam al-Hussein. When he takes the amama of Imam al-Hussein, he puts it on his head. You find this person begins to suffer from insanity. Now I say, these individuals, they took that tabarrukat from the body of Sayyid al-Shuhada. But when that same amama is given by Imam al-Rida Di'bal al-Khuzai, you find one group is afflicted with punishment. But when Di'bal takes that turban of Imam al-Rida, or you find that Imam al-Rida gives his shirt and his kurta to Di'bal al-Khuzai, Di'bal, he takes one thread of that shirt, that servant within his home is able to gain her vision back with one thread from the shirt of Imam al-Rida. I say on one side, it was the abaya of an imam, one group is being punished. On the other side, Di'bal has the cloak of an imam, Di'bal is given shafa. What is the difference? The difference is that ma'rifah with which they approach the imams of Ahlul Bayt. You see, Allah says, Kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'an. That everywhere the signs of Allah manifest themselves differently. One group, it was an adab and a punishment. Another group, it was shafa'ah and intercession. The same as with the incident of Karbala. Without a doubt, this movement of Karbala, when news went to Yazid and Ibn Ziyad, it was another sign. But when that news, it goes to al-Baneen and Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari and Salama, you find that this sign, it manifests itself differently. And that's why you find that there are different views and understandings as to what the goal and the philosophy of the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada was. And in tonight's Majlis, I'll examine those different views and opinions as to why Imam al-Hussein carried out this movement. Because at the end of the day, the question of why is a fundamentally important question. That why is it year after year we cry over the same masayib and musibah? The masayib, it doesn't change. The story, it doesn't change. But year after year, the moment the moon of Muharram is sighted, you know that these are the days to remember Sayyid al-Shuhada. That what is it that Imam al-Hussein did, that it was so important that we remember him year in, we remember him year out. And you find when you come to this discussion as to why Imam al-Hussein carried out this movement, you'll begin to understand the importance of why Ahlul Bayt emphasized the dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada. To the extent that no Nabi, no Wali has as many ziyarat as Imam al-Hussein. That on the day of Arafah, ziyarah for Imam al-Hussein. 15th of Sha'ban, ziyarah for Imam al-Hussein. Laylatul Qadr, ziyarah for Imam al-Hussein. Day of Eid, ziyarah for Imam al-Hussein. that why is it that Imam al-Hussein is remembered like this? And you find one of the secrets they lie in understanding this question as to why Imam al-Hussein carried out this movement. Now you find that from amongst the opinions and views as to why Imam al-Hussein carried out this movement, you find that one group of individuals, they said that we should not study Karbala. And you find that this was from within the school of Ahlul Bayt. And when you examine the reasonings, they said, number one, either Karbala is a responsibility which is exclusive for Imam al-Hussein. That it is, number one, it is taklif shaksi. It is a responsibility only for the Imam. The Imam, he says, Amarani Rasulullah bi amrin wa ana madin fihi. That Rasulullah commanded me with an act and I'm carrying it out. A second group who said we shouldn't study Karbala, they said no, it is a general responsibility for the entire ummah. But the conditions and the applications of this responsibility are only with the Imam Ma'soom. Thus, it does not benefit us to understand this movement of Imam al-Hussein. But no, a third group said that none of the Imams after Sayyid al-Shuhada explained the philosophy of the movement. Thus, for us, Imam al-Hussein is only a symbol for us and he is a sha'air of the deen. Now, without a doubt, these views, there are some facts and there are truths behind them. But you find that the first reply you give to these individuals is that, number one, when there is evil upon the earth, you find Amar bil Ma'ruf is a responsibility for the entire ummah. That when the Quran in chapter 3, verse 104, it says, فَلْتَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ إِلَى الْمُنْكَرِ. That the Quran says that why is there not a nation from amongst you that invites to righteousness and they call to that which is good and prohibit evil? You find that this is something which is general for the entire ummah. Rasulullah had said that when you see Banu Umayyah upon my mimbar, make sure you take them off from my mimbar. You find this responsibility. Even though the Imam is the only one who carried it out in that time, this responsibility was for the entire ummah. The second reply you give is that to understand Karbala is to gain ma'rifah of Sayyid al-Shuhada. To understand Karbala is to gain ma'rifah of that Imam. That when you look at the movements of the Imam, you find that every step of the journey of Sayyid al-Shuhada shows that this individual was incomparable in his time. Not even the day of Ashura. Even if you just look at that journey from Medina to Makkah, Makkah towards Karbala, it's stated within this journey that when Sayyid al-Shuhada, he sees that the army of Hur is coming. At that spot before, Imam al-Hussein tells those who are with him that make sure you take extra water. The moment the army of Hur begins to come towards Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein says, now go and give water towards them. The Maqatil, they say that even the horses of the army of Hur were given water by the army of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And if that isn't enough, it's written in the Maqtal of Abu Mikhnaf that Ali ibn Tiyan al-Muharibi, he says that I was the last to come to the army of Hur. And when I was the last to come, I had become so weak that I wasn't able to drink from that water myself. And as I was in this state of weakness, I see a man coming towards me. That man said that come down from your camel. I didn't understand what he was saying. I thought he meant that give him a bag of water. So I said to him, oh man, what are you saying? He said in my dialect, come down from the camel. The moment I came down from the camel, that man with his hands, he took that mush and that water bag, he put it upon my lips and I drank from the water. after I went away, I said that who was that man who gave me the water? They say, do you not know that this is Hussein ibn Ali? You see, even looking at this journey of the Imam, you see this individual is like no other. That while other individuals would call to material gain, Imam al-Hussein would call his companions to paradise and that status. That why does Imam speak to Hur in the manner he speaks to Hur? You know, when Hur, he stops the Imam, he grabs the rein of the horse of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And the Imam says to Hur, Taqilatka ummuk, ma turid. That may your mother weep over you. Why are you doing this? What do you want? You know, at that moment, what does Hur realize? The Imam wasn't trying to insult Hur, even though this was an insulting expression. But Imam al-Hussein wanted Hur to have a realization. And what was that realization? Hur, he says, Ama wallah, law kana ghayruka min al-Arab yaquluha li ma qulta. That if any of the Arabs said to me what you had said, وَهُوَ عَلَى مِثْلِ الْحَالِ الَّتِي أَنْتَ عَلَيْهَا مَا تَرَكْتُ ذِكْرَ أُمِّهِ بِالتُّقُلِ أَنْ أَقُولَهُ كَائِنًا مَنْ كَانَ. Or he says, if anybody else said that towards me, I would say, may your mother weep over you, no matter who it was. وَلَكِنْ وَاللَّهِ مَا لِي إِلَى ذِكْرِ أُمِّكَ مِنْ سَبِيلٍ إِلَّا بِأَحْسَنِ مَا يُقْدَرُ عَلَيْهِ. That except I have nothing to say about your mother except the best of words are for your mother. You see, at that moment, Imam al-Hussein allowed Hur to recognize the status of Janab Zahra. And the Urafa say that Hur, he made that journey from that moment which would end on him coming to the side of Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. This is how Imam al-Hussein invites in his journey another individual by the name of At-Tirrama. At-Tirrama says to the Imam, I want to join you, but my family is in the outskirts of Kufa. I need to go and give them food. The Imam says to Tirrama that go, but hurry and join me, O Tirrama. That the Imam wanted him to be from amongst that group about whom we say, Assalamu alaikum ya ansara deen Allah. That salam be upon you, the supporters of the religion of Allah. So you see, those who say we shouldn't study Karbala, by these different examples, which were only one or two examples, we get an insight into the ma'rifah of Imam al-Hussein and the status of the Imam. And Imam al-Sadiq says in a tradition to Fudayl, Ya Fudayl. The Imam says, Atajlisuna wa tatahaddatun. That, O Fudayl, do you have majalis? Do you sit and discuss? Inna tilkal majalis uhibbuha. Those gatherings I love, O Fudayl. Fa'ahyu amrana, re-enliven our affairs. Rahimallahu abdan ahya amrana. That may Allah have mercy upon that individual who enlivens the affairs of Ali Muhammad. So you see, to understand Karbala is to enliven the affairs of Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. But the third reply you give to these individuals that say one shouldn't study Karbala, by studying Karbala you understand the sunan of Allah and the methods of Allah. You see, amongst the Quran, there are two different types of sunan and methodologies that are mentioned. Number one is the method of a society. You see, each of these Quranic stories, whether it is the people of Saleh or Hud or Isa, you find each of them had the same societal method. They would believe in that prophet, then they would get comfortable with those blessings, then they would begin to reject those blessings, a punishment would come down upon them. Allah says in Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا قَرْيَةً كَانَتْ آمِنَةً مُطْمَئِنَّةً يَأْتِيهَا رِزْقُهَا رَغَدًا مِنْ كُلِّ مَكَانٍ. Allah says that I will give you the example of a town. They used to believe and they had peace. And their risk and sustenance would come in abundance from every single spot. Then after that it says, فَكَفَرَتْ بِأَنْعُمِ اللَّهِ. Then after that they were ungrateful for the blessings of Allah. فَأَذَاقَهَا اللَّهُ لِبَاسَ الْجُوعِ وَالْخَوْفِ بِمَا كَانُوا يَصْنَعُونَ. After that, Allah made them taste the clothing of fear and hunger because they rejected. So you find this is something which governed each society. But in the same way, when it comes to the deen of Allah, you find Allah has had a methodology for the deen from the time of Adam to the time of Rasulullah. For example, when you look at the ayat of the Quran, one of the methodologies that we see of Allah is that nubuwwat and successorship is always in one household. That you look at Surah Al-Hadid. In Surah Al-Hadid it says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا نُوحًا وَإِبْرَاهِيمَ وَجَعَلْنَا فِي ذُرِّيَّتِهِمَا النُّبُوَّةَ وَالْكِتَابَ. That we sent Noah and Ibrahim, and within their progeny we put nubuwwah. Now you go to Surah Al-Imran, chapter 3, verse 33-34. Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِسْتَفَى آدَمَ وَنُوحًا وَآلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَآلَ إِمْرَانَ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ ذُرِّيَّةً بَعْدُهَا مِنْ بَعْدٍ. That Allah has chosen Adam and Nuh and the progeny of Ibrahim and Ali Imran over all of the nations, a lineage after another. You know, this verse was recited by Imam al-Hussein on the day of Ashura. And you know when it was recited? It was recited upon the killing of Ali Akbar alayhi salam. You see, ulama, they say, the recitation of this verse upon the killing of Ali Akbar shows the fadail of Ali Akbar. That although he wasn't a Nabi, nor was he an Imam, it's only at that point where Imam al-Hussein recites this ayat showing that he was from amongst those who were chosen without being a Nabi, without being an Imam. So you see from all of these ayat and additional ayat such as Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 124, where Allah says to Ibrahim, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما قال ومن ذريتي قال لا ينال عهد الظالمين. This verse which each and every one of you know, Allah says that when Allah tested Ibrahim with those words and he completed that test, Allah said, I am making you an imam, O Ibrahim, over the people. But Ibrahim at that moment, he says, Oh Allah, what about my progeny? Allah says, O Ibrahim, imamat will not go towards the dhalimeen and the oppressors within your progeny. All of these verses, they go to show that nubuwwat and imamat is in one household. And this is the method of Allah. Those who say one should not study Karbala, you say to them to understand Hussein is to understand the sunnah of Allah. To study Hussein isn't just to study Hussein. To understand Imam al-Hussein is to understand Adam. And it's to understand Ibrahim. And it's to understand Rasulullah. That's why you say in ziyarah, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Adam safwatillah. Assalamu alayka ya waritha Nuhin Nabiyullah. Assalamu alayka ya waritha Ibrahim Khalilullah. You say, Oh Hussein, you are the inheritors of each of these Anbiya. And by extension, to support Hussein isn't just to support Imam al-Hussein. To support Imam al-Hussein is to support the deen of Allah. It is to support Rasulullah. That's why the ziyarah says, Assalamu alaikum ya ansar dinullah. That, O companions of Hussein, you didn't just support Aba Abdullah on that day, but you supported the deen of Allah. And by supporting Hussein, Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Rasulullah. You became the ansar of Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Amir al-Mu'mineen. You became the the Ansar of Amir al-Mu'mineen, of Astaana-e-Zehra, of Imam al-Hassan, of Imam al-Hussein. But after that, what do you say? You see, the next line is a line which really bewilders the mind. After that, you say, Bi-abi antum wa ummi. That may my mother and my father be sacrificed for you, O Ashab of Hussein. You see, if you and I said this, it makes sense. But who gave this ziyarah? This ziyarah, Imam al-Sadiq gave to Safwan bin Jamal. Who is Imam al-Sadiq's father? Imam al-Sadiq's father is Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. Imam al-Sadiq is saying, may my mother and my father be sacrificed for you, O Ashab of Hussein. Tibtum wa tabat al-ardu allati fiha dufintum. That not only are you blessed, but that land in which you are buried, even that land has become a land of barakah, O Ashab of Hussein. You see, this is how Sayyid al-Shuhada elevated these individuals. These are those individuals. If you want to understand the fazilat of the ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada, it is because of these individuals standing in front of Imam al-Hussein that the world did not become devoid of the wujood of Ashab al-Kisa for moments longer. That if the final member of Ashab al-Kisa, of those five, of the Panjitan, was upon this earth for moments longer, it's because of these ashab of Sayyid al-Shuhada. That you look at somebody like Abis ibn Abi Shabib al-Shakiri. You know, the name of Abis isn't mentioned oftentimes. But if you look in the Maqatil, Abis is that individual that it's stated that when all of the companions begin to die one by one, those companions who remained, they would struggle with each other to go first before Imam al-Hussein. That they would try to be the first one in front of the Imam. And Abis bin Abi Shabib, he says that there is no one upon this earth, whether a relative or a non-relative, who is more beloved to me than Hussein. And he says, if I had anything more valuable than my life, even that I would give in the path of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You see, these are those companions. They understood the Imam, they understood the movement of the Imam. Now that we understand that to understand Karbala is to gain ma'rifah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, and it is to uncover the method of the deen of Allah, the question comes up, is that what are the different views amongst the school of Ahlul Bayt as to why Imam al-Hussein carried out this movement? You'll find the first opinion was that opinion which I had already mentioned. And that is that opinion which said that Karbala was only a responsibility for Imam al-Hussein. You see, this was the view of Allam al-Majlisi, and it was the view of Sahib al-Jawahir. And they said that عدم التفكير على هذه المسألة أحوط وأولى. That to not reflect upon this matter is better. Now we'll examine the arguments they gave for it and the arguments against it to see what the proper perspective is. The argument they used for it is they said if you look at the hadith, many of the hadith they show that this responsibility was for Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein, he says, Amarani Rasulullah bi amrin wa ana madin fi. That Rasulullah commanded me to do something, I am carrying it out. Another tradition, which is found in Al-Kafi, it states that when Rasulullah was passing away, Jibreel descended with that wasiyah of Rasulullah. And that wasiyah had 12 seals, 12 khatam upon it. And that will, after Rasulullah would be given to Amir al-Mu'mineen would open the first seal, it would be given to Imam Hassan, who would open the second seal, it would be given to Sayyid al-Shuhada, who would open the third seal. The hadith, it says, فَلَمَّا تُوَفِّيَ الْحَسَنُ وَمَدَى فَتَحَ الْحُسَيْنِ al-Khatam al-Thalith. That when Imam al-Hassan passed away, Imam al-Hussein, he opened the third seal. And when he opened the third seal, فَوَجَدَ فِيهِ أَنْ قَاتِلْ فَاقْتُلْ تُقْتَلْ وَاخْرُجْ بِأَقْوَامٍ لِلشَّهَادَةِ. Then what did it say? It said, O Hussein, you will go and fight and you will be killed. And go with your people and gain shahadat, O Hussein. You see, in Urdu poetry, I know this is a community which understands Marsiya Khani. In Urdu poetry, there is something which is mentioned called Wada-i-Tifli. That promise which was given in childhood. You know, oftentimes people say this is the work of the shu'ara and the poets. But no, if you go to the hadith in Al-Kafi and Bihar al-Anwar, you find this reality is mentioned. That when Rasulullah was there, Jibreel says to Rasulullah, O Rasulullah, are you willing to have difficulty come upon your Ahlul Bayt, O Rasulullah? Rasulullah turns to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, O Rasulullah, I accept this reality. He turns to Fatima al-Zahra. Zahra says, for the deen of Allah, I accept that reality. That if for the deen of Allah, the rib of Zahra was meant to be broken. Zahra says, I take that. But after looking to Amir al-Mu'mineen and Janab Zahra, Rasulullah looks towards two children. He looks to Imam al-Hassan and he says, Oh Hassan, are you willing to take all difficulty for this deen? Imam al-Hassan says, yes, I accept. Then he says to Imam al-Hussein, that are you willing to have your family sacrificed? And are you willing to be killed ghariban, madluman, adshanan, O Hussein? That are you willing to be killed thirsty? Sayyid al-Shuhada says, I accept that reality. You see, these hadith, they seem to allude that Karbala was only the responsibility of Imam al-Hussein. Now, there are three angles to this. The first angle is this, is that without a doubt, at the highest level, Karbala is a sir and a secret between Allah and Sayyid al-Shuhada. That at the highest level, the highest of responsibility is for Imam al-Hussein. Without a doubt, that reality is there. But we say from the second aspect, yes, we wouldn't be able to understand Karbala, but Imam al-Hussein in his sermons and his sayings explained Karbala. That the presence of these hadith go to show that it is something which we can understand according to our capacity only via the hadith of Ahlul Bayt. Not through our opinions, but through the opinions and the views of the sons of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Because who understands Imam al-Hussein better than the children of Imam al-Hussein? But at the third level, you find that this reality of the movement of Imam al-Hussein is such a reality that even if that responsibility is only for the Imam, there are certain wisdoms which we can understand. Salatul Layl was a responsibility that was wajib only on Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt. For us, Salatul Layl isn't wajib. But we can understand that these are those individuals who have the most supreme spiritual status. So you find that this view, although it has some truth behind it, it doesn't paint a complete reality. The second view as to the philosophy behind the movement of Imam al-Hussein was the view of Allama al-Naraki in his book Muharrik al-Qulub, that he says the reason Imam al-Hussein sacrificed himself was for the sins of his Shia. That Imam al-Hussein, even though his dua is accepted, and if the Imam wanted to make a dua against the army of Umar bin Saad, the dua of the Imam would be accepted. The fact that the Imam does not make this dua means the Imam wanted to attain that status of shafa'ah. He wanted us to cry over him, and through that we would gain paradise. Now the first angle to this is that without a doubt those traditions are there. The traditions about mourning for Sayyid al-Shuhada, they are there. But these traditions aren't just exclusive to Imam al-Hussein. The entire musibah of any of the members of Ahlul Bayt allows one to gain shafa'ah. Imam al-Rida in a tradition says, Man dhakara musabana wa baka liman takaba minna kana ma'ana fi darajatina yawm al-qiyamah. That Imam al-Rida says that the one who cries over the masayib of any of us of Ahlul Bayt, that individual will be with us in our status in paradise. You see, this tradition is going to show that without a doubt, shafa'ah is there. We cannot reject these traditions. But at the second level, there is a difference between a goal and an impact. The hadaf is something else, the other is something else. Imam al-Hussein's goal was not for this shafa'ah to reach us, but it is because of the impact of the greatness of the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein that this outcome is for the Shia. You see, the goal is different. The impact is something else. You see, after the blood of Sayyid al-Shuhada was spilt on the land of Karbala, that land, which was a land of trial and tribulation, that land became a land that it is stated the one who does the ziyarah of Hussein in Karbala, it's as if he has done the ziyarah of Allah fawqa arshi. Now, was the goal of the Imam to elevate the land of Karbala, or was the goal of the Imam something else and this was the outcome? No, without a doubt, this was not the goal, this was that outcome. That the moment the blood of Imam al-Hussein was mixed in the land of Karbala, you find this land gained such a status that when you look at all of those places that we visit, you find each of them has a title. Makkah is Mukarrama in honor. Medina is Munawwara and enlightened. Mashhad is Muqaddas and sanctified. Qadmain is Sharifain, honorable. Najaf is Ashraf, but Karbala was called Mu'alla, the elevated. You see, the only entities within the hadith which were called Mu'alla was either the Arsh of Allah or the Karbala of Hussein. Now understand the tradition. The one who does the ziyarah of Hussein, it's as if he has done the ziyarah of Allah fawqa arshi. So this view is said that Imam al-Hussein died for the sins of the Shia in the way the Christians, they view Christ. Now, without a doubt, those hadith of Shafa'ah are there, but that does not paint the goal of Imam al-Hussein. The third view as to the philosophy of the movement of Imam al-Hussein, this was that view that said Imam al-Hussein sacrificed himself to enliven the religion. You see, this was the view of Sayyid Hibatullah al-Sharistani. He says Imam al-Hussein knew that whether he gives bay'ah or he doesn't give bay'ah and allegiance towards Yazid, he was going to be killed. Then why not deny that bay'ah and attain martyrdom? And you find one of the proofs that this school it uses is the poetry of Aba Fadl Abbas on the day of Ashura when the right arm of Aba Fadl Abbas was cut. You know what Aba Fadl Abbas says on that day? He says, Wallah in qata'tum yameen, inni ohami abadan an dini, wa an imam as-sadiq al-yaqeen. Aba Fadl Abbas says that even if you cut my right arm, never will I stop supporting the deen of Allah. Those individuals who held this view, they said this line of Abbas, who is the spokesman of the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada, that who else do we use to gain ma'rifah of Imam al-Hussein other than Aba Fadl Abbas? That even when you go to Karbala and you stand in Bainul Haramain, one side the shrine of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the other side the mausoleum of Aba Fadl Abbas, and you think to yourself that where do I go first? The ulama, they say you go to Abbas and you gain ijazah from Aba Fadl Abbas. And you know what you say over there? You say, Ya kashif al-karb an wajh al-Husayn. Ikshif al-karb anni wa an hadhihi al-ummah. Oh, the one who removed difficulty from the face of Hussein, remove difficulty from me and this ummah. So they say that Abbas, he said, that I am sacrificing myself for the deen of Allah. The fourth view as to the reason of the movement of Imam al-Hussein was the view of an individual by the name of Salihi Najaf Abadi. And this individual says that the goal of Imam al-Hussein was simply to attain Shahada. And the proof that he uses for this view is that Imam al-Hussein said that Rasulullah told me within my dream as he was leaving Medina that, Ya Hussein, Inna laka la daraja la tanaluha illa bishahada. That, O Hussein, there is a status you cannot attain except by martyrdom, O Hussein. But I say even this doesn't paint the complete picture, because the Imam is that individual who is Wajhullah. The Imam is that face of Allah. On the Ziyarah 15th of Sha'ban, we say Imam al-Hussein, Ashhadu annaka nurun. That, O Hussein, you are that light. Alladhi lam yutfa wa la yutfa abada. That Imam al-Hussein, you are that light which was never extinguished, nor will you be extinguished. Then we say, wa annaka wajhullah. Alladhi lam yahlik wa la yuhlak abada. That, O Hussein, you are that face of Allah that will never be destroyed, O Hussein. You see, if Imam al-Hussein is Wajhullah, Shahadat is only a wasila to something greater. The Imam who is Wajhullah, every movement of the Imam is for the intisar and the help of the deen of Allah. So you find this was another opinion. But the final opinion, which I'll present before coming to that common opinion today, is that view which said that the method and the goal of Imam al-Hussein would change. They said that when Imam al-Hussein first he leaves, his goal was to accept the invitation of the people of Kufa. But when he saw that they rejected him, then his goal became Shahada. You see, the first point of this view is that this limits the ilm of the Imam. We have traditions which say in Al-Kafi that the Imam has ilmu makan wa ma yakun, that events of the past and the future are with Ahlul Bayt. We have traditions which say that Rasulullah told Imam al-Hussein about Karbala. But even if you don't accept these traditions, Imam al-Hussein already knew about the killing of Muslim bin Aqil. Imam al-Hussein knew about the people of Kufa. Then how can you say the view of Imam al-Hussein would change? And this is where you find that the final view, which has come to be the most popular view as to why Imam al-Hussein carried out this movement, is that Imam al-Hussein was not a simple individual. And Imam al-Hussein was an individual who had various goals in his mind. The first thing Imam al-Hussein did is he protected the izzah and the respect of the religion of Islam. Because Imam al-Hussein, he says to Walid bin Utbah, he says, Ayyuhal Amir, inna ahlu bayt al-nabuwa, wa ma'adin al-risala, wa mukhtalaf al-malaika, wa mahall al-rahma, bina fatah Allahu bina yakhtim. Imam al-Hussein says, we are the house of messengership. From us, Risala would come. We are that place where the mercy of Allah would descend, where the Malaika would descend. And Imam al-Hussein would say, Islam would begin with us and it ends with us, Ali Muhammad. And then he says, وَيَزِيدَ رَجُلٌ شَارِبُ خَمَرٍ قَاتِلُ النَّفْسِ الْمُحْتَرَمَةِ مُعْلِنٌ بِالْفِسْقِ. Yazid is an individual who drinks alcohol. Yazid, he kills innocent individuals. Yazid, he is open about sinning. When the leader of the Muslims is open about sinning, if Imam al-Hussein gives bay'ah to such a man, what izzah and respect does Islam have left? Imam al-Hussein says, "Mithli la yubaya'u mithla." That a person like me can never give allegiance like that. And at the second level, you find that after giving honor to Islam, Imam al-Hussein, who is the one who woke up the conscience of the Muslim, that within 50 years, this is how far they strayed from the deen of Allah. That they didn't recognize who the grandson of Rasulullah was and what his status was. You find this is that reality. And it's only through the blood of Sayyid al-Shuhada we begin to see movement after movement. That the people of Medina after Karbala, they kick out Banu Umayyah from Medina. We see the uprising of Mukhtar. We see the uprising of Zayd al-Shaheed. We see the uprising of Ali ibn al-Hussein at Fakh. We find all of these uprisings and this consciousness, they come from where? They come from the spilling of the blood of Sayyid al-Shuhada. But you find another philosophy of Imam al-Hussein to carry out this uprising is for people to understand the madlumiyya of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Because the moment you understand their madlumiyya and their oppression, you see how far these individuals strayed away from the message of Rasulullah, that I ask for nothing except love for my family. You see, the reason Imam after Imam emphasized to remember Sayyid al-Shuhada is because they recognize through the recognition of Hussein, through mourning over Hussein, all of the goals and the philosophy behind the movement of the Imam are realized within you. Imam Zainul Abidin wasn't a person who was weak-hearted, na'udhu billah. But within the tears of Imam Zainul Abidin was a philosophy. The moment the Imam would cry, the people would ask the Imam and the Imam would tell them about Karbala. A man, he comes to Medina. He says, Ya Zainul Abidin, ana al-gharib. Imam Zainul Abidin says, oh man, can I ask you a question? You are saying that you're gharib, but oh man, if you were to die, would they give kafan towards your body? If you were to die, would they give ghusl towards your body? If you were to die, would they take care of your women after you? The man says yes. Then Imam Zainul Abidin, he says, if anyone was gharib, my father Hussein was gharib. After that, Imam Zainul Abidin, he sees a butcher. He says to that butcher, did you give this animal water? The butcher says, we're Muslim, we give water to the animals. The Imam said, did you sharpen the sword? Did you make sure no other animals were watching? When the butcher said yes, Imam Zainul Abidin, he says that when they killed my father, that neither did they give him water, neither did they sharpen the sword. From 70 paces, my aunt Zainab would watch وَالشِّمَرْ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِ الْحُسَيْنِ. You see, Ahlul Bayt would emphasize the dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada. But you see, there was one moment in the history of Ahlul Bayt that Ahlul Bayt said, stop the masayib. You see, wherever any poet would come, the Imam would say, Zidni, that add more masayib. Keep reciting masayib. But you know when that moment was, when Ahlul Bayt said the musibah is too much? It was that moment when Sayyid al-Himyari, he comes to Imam al-Sadiq and he says, oh Imam al-Sadiq, I wrote a marthiyah for your Jad Hussein. You know what Sayyid al-Himyari, he recites? He says, Umar ala Jadat al-Hussein faqul li a'dumih az-zakiyah. He says, go by the body of Hussein and say to the body of Hussein that أَعْدُ مَنْ لَا زِلْتِ وَطْفَاءَ سَاكِبَةٍ رَبِيًّا. that, O body of Hussein, we will always water you with the tears that come from our eyes, O body of Hussein. That it says, وَإِذَا مَرَرْتَ بِقَبْرِهِ فَأَتِلْ بِهِ وَقْفَ الْمَطِيَّةِ. That when you go to the grave of Hussein, don't leave quickly from the grave of Hussein. Stand at the grave of Hussein. وَابْكِ الْمُطَهَّرْ لِلْمُطَهَّرْ وَالْمُطَهَّرَةِ الزَّكِيَّةِ. And let the pure cry for the pure. Then after that, Sayyid al-Himyari, he says that line where Imam al-Sadiq says, "Oh Sayyid al-Himyari, stop the masayib." You know what Sayyid al-Himyari he said? He said, when you go to the grave of Hussein, wabki, that cry in the way, ka mu'abilatin yawman adad li wahidha al-maniyya. That when you go to the grave of Hussein, cry like a mother on that day her only child on that day her only child has passed away. You see, these days are the days when Ahlul Bayt are going from Karbala towards Kufa. That upon these days, you find that after the body of Sayyid al-Shuhada was trampled, Dhul Jannah comes towards the tent of the women. And the moment the horse of Imam and Hussein comes towards the tent of the women, the Maqtal, it says, the daughter of Sayyid al-Shuhada, she sees the horse of her father. She says, Ya Dhul Jannah, hal sukiya abi ammata adshana. That, O Dhul Jannah, that was my father given water or was my father killed thirsty? You know the Masaib of Shamil Ghariba. But you know, when the day of the 11th of Muharram it came, and Ahlul Bayt was going in the direction of Kufa, Sayyida Zainab says, "O Shimar, I only have one request. Don't take these women through the Maqtal. That don't take these women through the bodies." You find Shimar, he takes the women of Ali Muhammad through the battlefield of Karbala. You find Farwa would go to the body of Qasim, and Layla would go to the body of Ali Akbar. But as each of the women would go towards the bodies, it stated Sayyida Zainab, she only goes to the body of her brother Hussein. When Sayyida Zainab, she sees the body of Abu Abdullah, she looks at the broken body of Sayyid al-Shuhada. She says, A'anta akhi, that are you my brother Hussein? Then after that she says, Wa Muhammada, Hada Husaynun al-Murammalu bid-dama. She says, Ya Rasulallah, this is your Hussein, O Rasulallah. That Hussein was covered in blood, Ya Rasulallah. You see, Sayyida Zainab, after she gives her salam to the body of Sayyid al-Shuhada, they begin to move in the direction of Kufa. As they go in the direction of Kufa, one point it comes that Imam Zainul Abidin is walking past the body of Imam al-Hussein. And as Imam Zainul Abidin is walking past the body of Sayyid al-Shuhada, it stated that the color of the face of Imam Zainul Abidin, it begins to change. The hadith, it says, تغير لون وجهه. But at that moment, Sayyida Zainab, she looks towards her nephew. Sayyida Zainab, she falls from the camel to the ground of Karbala. Imam Zainul Abidin, he goes to Sayyida Zainab. He says, Oh my aunt, why did you fall in this manner? Sayyida Zainab says, Oh Sajjad, I've lost everyone, oh Sajjad. Sajjad. Oh Sajjad, I couldn't bear to lose you, Imam.